Okay, so to really get our heads around this debate, we're going to need a little help from a famous thought experiment. So let's meet our main character. Her name is Mary, and she is an absolutely brilliant neuroscientist.
Now, Mary's situation is, well, it's pretty unique. She has lived every single moment of her entire life locked away in a room where everything, the walls, the books, her own clothes, is black, white, or some shade of gray. She has never, not once, seen a single speck of color.
But here is the crucial twist. Inside this colorless world, Mary has become the world's leading expert on color vision. From her black and white books and monitors, she has learned literally every single physical fact there is to know. She knows the physics of light waves, the anatomy of the eyeball, the exact neurochemistry that happens in your brain when you look at, say, a bright red tomato. She knows it all.
And then, the big day comes. The door to her room finally opens. She steps outside into the world, and someone hands her a fresh, ripe, red tomato. For the very first time in her life, she actually experiences the color red. So here it is, the million-dollar question. She already knew every physical fact about seeing red. But in that moment, when she actually sees it, does she learn something new?
Well, the philosopher who came up with this whole scenario, Frank Jackson, thought the answer was, well, kind of obvious. Of course she learns something new. She learns what it's like to see red. That's a piece of knowledge she simply couldn't get from her books. And this what it's likeness actually has a technical name in philosophy. It's called qualia. Qualia are those subjective personal qualities of any experience. It's the unique redness of red, the sharp bitterness of a lemon, the warmth of the sun on your skin. It's the internal feeling of an experience, not just the physics behind it.
So this all builds up to what's called the knowledge argument, and it's pretty straightforward. Premise 1, Mary knew all the physical facts. Check. Premise 2, after seeing red, she learned a new fact, what it's like to see red. Seems right. So the conclusion follows, there must be facts that are not physical. And if that's true, then physicalism, the idea that everything is physical, must be wrong.
But wait a second, the physicalists weren't just going to give up. They have a powerful defense. They actually agree that Mary learned something, they just strongly disagree that it's a new, non-physical fact about the world. So let's look at the case for the defense. They've got three main explanations.
Okay, defense number 1. They argue that Mary doesn't learn a new fact, as in a new piece of information about the world. No. Instead, she gains a new skill or ability. It's the difference between knowing that something is true and knowing how to do something. Think about it like this. You could read every single book ever written about the physics of swimming. You could know all about buoyancy and fluid dynamics. But does that mean you know how to swim? Of course not. You only learn that by jumping in the water. So the argument is Mary doesn't learn a new fact about red. She just gains the ability, the know-how to recognize, remember, and imagine it. But you gotta wonder, does that really solve the problem? Is that awe-inspiring moment of seeing a sunset for the first time, is that really just gaining a new skill? It feels like the experience itself, the what it's likeness, is the new knowledge, not just some ability we picked up.
All right, on to the second defense. This one's called acquaintance knowledge. The idea here is that Mary doesn't learn a new fact, she just becomes directly familiar with a thing she previously only knew about from a distance, through descriptions.
The best analogy for this is a celebrity. You could read every biography and watch every interview. You might know every single fact there is to know about them. But then you actually meet them in person. You don't necessarily learn any new facts, but you gain this new direct acquaintance. The idea is that Mary finally got acquainted with the physical brain state she'd only ever read about.
But again, we run into a bit of a problem. When you become acquainted with something, doesn't that involve learning the new fact that the experience of red is like this? It feels like you can't really pull those two things apart. The acquaintance seems to bring a new fact along with it.
This brings us to the third, and maybe the most powerful, physicalist argument. The idea here is that, yes, Mary does learn a new fact, but it's not a fact about a non-physical thing. It's just a new way of knowing an old physical fact she was already aware of.
The classic example here is water and H2O. For most of human history, people had the concept of water. Later, science gave us the concept of H2O. Now, those are two totally different concepts, right? But they both refer to the exact same stuff in the real world. One thing, two concepts.
Okay, so let's apply that to Mary. Before she left the room, she had a purely theoretical concept of seeing red based on physics. When she actually saw the tomato, she gained a new phenomenal concept, one based on her own experience. The physicalist says these are just two different ways of thinking about the very same thing, a specific, purely physical state happening in her brain.